something with you about spirituality, and I'm going to draw from Frank Hammer's Life and Its Mysteries. This was published in 1945. It's very short. If the soul lives after death, it must, of necessity, live before death. I know many of us teach that we began as spirit or as souls, light beings, if you will. And, I'm going to share a little bit of my personal thoughts on this, particularly since my recent epiphany with this whole concept of a light universe, or a universe composed of light with interference patterns within it, which become entangled. And my thoughts are simple. It's that we simply are. And as it speaks to us in, I believe in the Bible, Alpha and Omega, we are that. We are the circle without end. We merely move through, you can say we move through from one body to the next, one entanglement to the next, or one interference pattern to the next. As interference patterns with light, that's what holograms are. And we seem to be a little more solid than just a light image. So the interference pattern is of a different quality. Does anyone have anything they would like to add to that or share with that?
Thank you, Reverend Philip. I was just going to share the thought that that's a pretty giant package you just opened. It gave us a little tidbit of. There's so much more to add with that, and interesting how it coincides with what I have to share today later. So, thank you.
You're welcome. Would anyone else like to add something? And I would like to thank all of you for allowing me to share that with you. If you hear something you'd like me to consider, just send me the title. In the meantime, Reverend Thomas has a wonderful talk planned for us. It's story time because he has some wonderful stories to share with us, I'm sure. And Reverend Thomas, if you please.
Thank you, Reverend Philip. Interesting that you introduce it as a story. It certainly is today. I was inspired to share this today, and it should hopefully spark some interesting discussion. Something that I had written in 1997, and it's entitled Life's a Trip. Day one. Wow, how confining and restricting this breathing and the body is. The memories of the last time have grown dim. Ooh, the light is too bright for these eyes. The body is not adjusted to such intensity. Don't these fools understand anything? Wait, wait. Don't be too critical. This is part of what you came back to learn. That's why you chose this day to be born, so that you might overcome the powerful Virgo influences towards perfection and the resultant criticism. Yes, I remember now. What a struggle to get this woman to hold back the birth until this day. Over 3 weeks we struggled, and now at 8:10 p.m. we have just made it. Almost went over to the 2nd of September. Boy, would that have changed things. But we didn't. So all is going as planned. Well, almost all. They still want to name me Tony. Can't they remember that I am to be Thomas? I will not be named anything but Thomas. This is essential for this journey. If they name me Tony, I will have to change it later on. But the difference in vibration could take me off the main track of my soul agenda and delay my progress. I have major understandings to grasp this life with 3 lifetimes of lessons to complete before the new millennium. It was agreed long ago that these 2 would parent me as their firstborn. The powerful influences affecting the lessons of the firstborn, born on the first, would be mine this life. Our 3 soul agendas complement each other. The families they chose for their soul's work has prepared them to provide a perfect framework for my learning. This time, I will learn to open the heart center. I will hold back release of the power centers of which I am so familiar until the heart center is fully open. There will be no power abuse in this life. As planned, he survived the Great War. This man I will call Father. He was born the 16th of 18 children in a perfect environment to learn about love. An environment full of caring, but unable to provide much individual and emotional nurturing. The lack of emotional nurturing had brought him and will continue to bring him experiences to inevitably lead him to discover that the source of real love is within. That spark of divinity found within each human is the connection to the source. As I look into the tearful, smiling face of my new mother, I feel the great love she feels for me at this moment. I also feel the great pain she carries, the painful, unhealed memories of a childhood lacking in the love and emotional nurturing that she expects to provide for me. She also has been programmed well for our mutual purpose. Growing up in a harsh farm life with parents both programmed by the fears of the depression and difficult childhoods, she was shaped by feelings of unworthiness and powerlessness, just as they were. Mom and Dad will both transcend these feelings, but not before they pass them along to me. Not before my programming is complete, just as I will do for my son. The one I agreed to name Peter, he too will program 2 daughters before he awakens to his own healing. It is a perfect plan. I had almost forgotten what a major lesson in patience it is each time one enters the physical body. To be so aware, so clearly understanding, and yet not be able to communicate or mobilize this heavy body is so very frustrating. The brain matrix does not yet respond except in the most elementary ways. Breathing does not yet feel right or even good. The first attempts at desperate communications to tell what you know before the amnesia sets in results only in the wailing cries of a wrinkled little human. Once the frustration settles down, I will quietly attempt to communicate the most important thing I have to share. I will beam unconditional love from every part of this tiny being. Perhaps they will be reminded from where they came and from where they will return, and to remember that this is what they came here to learn more about. The powerful potential that arises from transcending the earthly experiences is so easily forgotten here. For the most useful and powerful experiences teach what unconditional love is not. I will have just 50 years to awaken myself, to remember my soul agenda, to transcend my life experiences, to remember unconditional love and accept my true power, in order to serve in the mass awakening as mankind graduates from this phase of the great plan. This time, I will get the heart open first. This time, I will get it right. This time, I will have it all. Comments? Questions?
Reverend Thomas, that was so powerful. I really don't have words to express how moved I am and touched, because it made so much sense to me. You know, and I could, as you were talking, it's like I could hear. I wonder what my contract was. You know,
precisely, and I was hoping that's exactly what I was hoping for, is that it would resonate with each of you, because each of our paths is a very personal journey, and it is full of particular details that are not common, except in their purpose, except in what we do with it. And so, if it resonated in that way, then that's a wonderful thing.
What it reminds me of for myself is a book that I just got through reading by Dolores Cannon, who is a hypnotherapist, past life regressionist, and he's talked to literally thousands of people all over the world. And one of the takeaways, of course, is that we all come into this particular environment with a plan. But of course, the minute we're born, that plan is it's gone. So it's, if we knew what the plan was, it wouldn't be as challenging, I guess. So it's but she has a lot of people have talked about that, who actually remember the experience of coming in, and just that weight of a physical body, from where they came from, being just a light body. It's kind of like, what the heck did I do? But, what did I get myself into,
Yeah.
Well, Reverend Kenneth, I would just like to say that this resonates so much with yogic philosophy, and you almost reminded me of an astrologer talking about the lineage of the charts and the families that we choose.
Thank you. It's all, that's all part of the whole, and it's not. We have a tendency as human beings, perhaps, to isolate and to accept a narrow belief system, rather than integrate all of the different ideas that sometimes seem in conflict, but are really each describing a particular truth or a particular thing, like astrology and the philosophy of yoga, and when we can see that providing something complementary to Christian teachings, or Muslim teachings, or Judaism, or Hinduism, or any of the isms, they are all part of the whole, and it's how they all fit together, I feel, is when we get a more complete picture and understanding, rather than just rejecting something we don't understand.
Well, the other I wanted to just make a comment about, when we come into this situation and you're, a child and you grow up and you don't look at the people, you don't necessarily look at the people around you. You only see them as they are today. You don't see them as how they were, like even at the time of your birth, or you don't identify that. You only identify what you know in your from your consciousness at that time, I think. So you kind of gave us a picture of them before we were really part of their life either. So it's kind of interesting to look at their path as related to our path, or their learning. Like you said, you're passing these ideas along generation to generation, but you won't wake up until you're like 45 or 55 or 85 or whatever, and then that you don't see it until then. So, I mean, yeah, it was really very
benefit to those patterns that we pass along, and it's so easy to look at those as a curse, to grow up in an alcoholic household, for instance, or something like that. But that establishes a particular pattern with the potential for transcendence that you couldn't do without having experienced that pattern. And so a soul that is interested in perfecting that part of their understanding would choose to be born into a household that's going to give them that pattern. Sometimes I've described that as ripe with opportunity for what they wanted to experience. There's still plenty of variables there, plenty of unknowns, because it's not so simplistic. It's very complex. You have everyone involved has their own soul's agenda, and so they complement each other and they overlap in ways, but they're also very individual. And there's no set moment for anyone involved to awaken and to begin transforming, because the energetic impact of a transformation affects those around you very powerfully, and so it's like the first piece in an avalanche that's broken free, and then the next piece comes easier, and the next, and the next, and you can't. Yeah, we're the no man is an island idea, that we are interconnected, all of us, most powerfully those that we're closest to, and we grow up in the same families. Those connections are the more powerful, but we can't change ourselves without affecting those around us, and it doesn't matter whether we even talk to them or live in the same state. It's just the fact that we change, that we make some powerful changes energetically affects the other.
I really liked how you talked about names having different vibrations. That was a good point to bring up.
Yeah.
Well, they do, and then the numerology of a name also, depending on which number you resonate with.
Right.
Your address, even.
It all has an impact and an effect, and sometimes we may give too much. I don't know if power is the right word, to one influence or another, but there's a balance there, and it all has an influence, and sometimes it's not as huge as we may feel it could be, sometimes we get really, really excited about discovering a new idea, a new concept. At least I've experienced that, and putting everything in good, in better perspective, um, and allowing that something is important, but perhaps not over, uh, over all encompassing.
It's a variable.
It's a variable, yes. I don't know if anyone has read Linda Goodman's Star Signs or Sun Signs. She was a very well known astrologer from, I don't know, I probably encountered more than 30 years ago, and then she wrote another book, Star Signs, and the star signs went into the transcendent qualities of each sign. That the 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 first influence is is what we encounter during our life. But as you begin to awaken and as you begin to connect more to your divine self, your spiritual self, there are these transcendent natures in every sign. And I don't remember it well enough to give you a good example. But for instance, the Virgos, um, perfectionism and tendency to be very critical transcends into something more positive. And I can't tell you what that is, but
I can tell you what that is. That is attention to detail. The
okay,
Virgo's
thank you.
good. Yes.
All right, thank you.
So you have the higher and lower case aspects of every sign, how they
Okay.
manifest in the individual. For instance, a Scorpio, you have a lower case and a higher case Scorpion. You can always count on them.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I just want to say how much I really enjoyed this. This was great. It was
Yeah, me too.
really nice. I loved your observations and the whole story. It was great.
And the rest of the story?
I'm going to just close it with the idea that I pray this has awakened something within yourself about your own story, and the there are going to be missing pieces, and you know there may or may not have been a tug of war over what your name would be or something like that, but the most important thing is what it ended up being and where you are and what you're doing with what you have. But to me, the bottom line is just understanding that we are spiritual beings having this human experience. You've heard me say that so many times, and others, remind us of that too. And it's all part of our steps to connection with our divine part of ourselves, the part of us that is truly made in the likeness and image of the Creator, and that is more completely who we are. And seeing the struggles that we each encounter in our physical life as being opportunities rather than some sort of something that could be even viewed as a punishment or bad luck or why me, and that change in perspective can make all the difference when you view something as not being a punishment or something negative, but as like, okay, here's an opportunity. What do I do with this? And what is it trying to tell me? And adopting that Christmas morning excitement of what's going to happen when I get the package open. What am I going to find? And if we can have a little bit of that energy when we are addressing the challenges in our life, things may go smoother, and we may learn some wonderful things about why we're here and what our soul's agenda is. And we're here for self-mastery. And mastery of self is the most powerful thing we can do to affect each other. And it's putting less energy out there and more energy within. It's not a selfish thing. It is the most important. Thank you, Reverend Philip, for allowing me to share today.
You're welcome. And Sandy, do you have any last thoughts?
I guess just the listening to that agenda, that great agenda of a life coming into fruition from the beginning. All the plans of that story of that person actually come to fruition by the time that person, leaves, or will most of it be accomplished, or, or does it have to be all? Just a open-ended question. And it would be wonderful if all of that could be accomplished in that lifetime.
Yeah, there's no guarantee.
Yeah.
That's where the free will comes in.
Right.
The free will is everything. Creation is not preordained, predetermined, I believe, and that's where the free will comes in.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a powerful, powerful part of the way creation unfolds. And it has to do with us individually as well as collectively, and for the creation as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
We're choosing. How we choose makes a difference.
Right.
And maybe that's the more important point, is that we each make a huge difference. And but not by looking out there to see what difference we make, but by looking within to see how we can grow and what we can change, and if we to heal any wounds that we have, because those are the things that hold us back.
Yes.
The wounds that aren't healed.
Yes.
Because ultimately it's an illusion. But like science talks about how everything is mostly empty space. There isn't anything really solid. So it's an illusion. Don't try to walk through that door, though. You better open it, because it's a very real illusion. And while we're in this physical body, we are subject to the limitations of the body. And
yes.
Anyway, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
And Britta, do you have any thoughts you'd like to add?
I just so appreciated this conversation, and even Reverend Thomas, when you mentioned science and how we really are more space, empty space, which really is the energy that we are. That life energy is what we mostly are, and of course that's how we experience one another, and it's all a projection, of what we are experiencing. So to master the internal world is truly the goal and our purpose, because what we leave behind is really that energy, and nothing else is really that important. So I really love this conversation. And
thank you for participating.
Thank you.
And Ken, do you have any thoughts you'd like to leave us with? Or leave with us?
I'd like to thank Reverend Philip for his insightful comments, because the more I hear him, the more impressed I am. You're getting a lot. You've got a good clear connection to spirit.
Thank you for that encouragement.
I really resonated with it. It kind of goes with every parallel path that I have been on. And I agree with everything that you said. It's nice when parallel paths can each say the same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just a little bit from me is words are important to me, and planning is essential. Contracts, I don't care for contracts because they're too itemized, they're too detailed. There's plans, you have to adjust your plan as soon as you put it into play. And that's where I'm at. I want to thank all of you for your thoughts, your participation, and I'd like to thank Reverend Thomas for his story and his interesting comments and input with all of it. Thank you all.